Hey guys, it's Rob here and welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to cover some of the bigger news pieces that we got from the recent Nintendo Direct and also talk about why the Nintendo Direct felt like it was lacking a bit in my personal opinion. And just overall talk about what I'm excited from this Nintendo Direct. If you guys end up enjoying this video, make sure you guys leave a like. It helps the video reach more viewers when you do. And also, of course, subscribe for more Nintendo Switch news, especially when the Nintendo Switch 2 drops, because we're going to be covering a lot of that news as well. So first off, let's talk about why the Nintendo Direct wasn't really too big. So I think Nintendo wanted to focus on the Nintendo Switch 1. That's very clear from this Nintendo Direct. This really is the last Nintendo Direct that's going to be focused on the Nintendo Switch 1, kind of. The Switch 2 is backwards compatible, so I guess you could say future Directs are focused on the Switch 1 too as well. But games like Metroid Prime 4, Pokemon Legends ZA, third-party games like Dragon Quest 1 Plus 2 HD 2D Remake, there's a new Tamagotchi game. These are all Switch 1 games that are going to be releasing from 2025 to 2026. And one thing I really did notice, if you guys didn't catch this, a lot of these games actually release in June. Funny enough, more than likely, we're probably going to be getting a Nintendo Direct in June. So they're really just setting up a lot of different smaller games to medium games to even some bigger games like the reveal that we got for Metroid Prime 4. That looks fantastic, especially that last view that we got of the new suit. That suit looks really cool, and the psychic powers that we're going to be using in Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, that also looks to be very, very fun to use. I could definitely see a lot of people doing very stylish and cool looking gameplay when it comes to controlling the bullets from Samus's suit. But overall, this was definitely a Nintendo Switch 1 Direct. So why would Nintendo not be revealing any of the bigger games? Because I think even though there were some really interesting games, for me personally, you know, Dragon Quest 1 Plus 2 HD 2D Remake, Pokemon Legends ZA looks pretty good. The new trainer combat looks pretty fun. The fact that you can just sneak up on enemies and attack them is pretty interesting. Finally, we can get some revenge. I'm sure you guys have played past Pokemon games where you don't really want to fight the trainer, but you don't really have a choice. So now we can kind of get some revenge. But there are other games like the Tamagotchi game looks pretty interesting. Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar looks really fantastic as well. That's definitely going to be one that I'm probably going to pick up. Either that or I'll rent it. We'll see how money is. There's also Redao Remastered, The Mystery of the Soulless Army. That also looks pretty fun to play. I do like some of these older remasters and remakes. I don't know, some of these older games just kind of have a feel. Might be nostalgia, might be just the really fantastic games, but overall I really do like going back and playing these older games, and yeah, I'm really excited for that. I've never played that game, so it's going to be pretty interesting. Let me know if you've played this game. I never played it myself, so we'll see how good it is. But overall, the Direct definitely was lacking some pretty big games in terms of impact, in my personal opinion. Not saying Metroid Prime 4 isn't a huge impact. That game looks fantastic. Pokemon Legends ZA looks fantastic too, but I definitely think there were some games that were missing, and I think the reason behind that is because we're probably going to end up getting a lot of the bigger games during that Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. Now, there is another option that we're going to talk about, what Nintendo could end up doing, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in this video. Now, there were some other smaller things announced in here, like the new app that's coming out that's going to deliver us some Nintendo news. I'm pretty interested to see if people will actually use that, or will they just rely on their usual sources of news, because a lot of people either follow a YouTuber or they just refresh Twitter, because usually that pops up in their feed, or they'll just Google it, or they have a Facebook page they follow or something like that. Usually that's how people get their news, so it's going to be interesting to see if people even use this app. What I can tell, it looks pretty good. The layout looks very appealing, so I'm pretty excited. Or I don't want to say excited because it's just an app, let's be honest, but I'm pretty interested to see how it works, what it looks like. So I'll download that today and maybe even do like a small short on it and tell you guys about it. Now, there was another thing that was announced in this Nintendo Direct, and that's the ability to share your physical games in a digital format. Personally, I wouldn't use that because I don't really have anybody who I would be sharing these games, but I could definitely see that being very useful if you have a family and multiple Nintendo Switches and they're all on the Nintendo Switch expansion subscription. I think one of the cool things here is that if you're kind of hesitant to give someone your game cartridge because you don't know if they're going to lose it or mess it up, this is kind of a good way to still allow people to borrow games, especially in a time when maybe money is tight. Or maybe, let's say you are a parent and they have siblings, they can pass it between their Nintendo Switches, and the fact that it automatically comes back means that there's no worry about, oh, you didn't send my game back, or something lost, or any other problems that could arise. I think that's pretty good for people who have children. Or maybe you just want to share with a friend. A lot of times people will have like a PS5 or an Xbox Series X and they'll game share because they'll have two different accounts and you're able to download those games. So this is kind of a better version of that. There's really gonna be no issues that I can tell anyways on this. And even if you don't have a family or you're not game sharing, this is kind of good if you have multiple Nintendo Switches. It's kind of an easy thing to do. Now, the interesting thing here is gonna be how much data is gonna be stored from these games. The Nintendo Switch doesn't really take up a lot of data in the first place, especially if you have like a very high memory card, so I don't think that's gonna be too much of a problem. If this was, say, like the PS5 or the Xbox Series X, I think then you'll end up coming up with a problem. Though the interesting part is going to be if the Nintendo Switch 2 is more powerful, how much are these third-party games going to cost when it comes to memory as well. But overall, I think this is just kind of like an extra thing to have. It doesn't really change anything when it comes to like digital games or anything that's going to change that would cause a problem. It's kind of just like an extra thing to be there if you want to use it. The interesting thing is going to be is if you unload the game, how much memory is still actually on those switches. That's what I'm really interested in. I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see how it works. But other than those two things, the app and the loading of the games, there wasn't really anything else, in my opinion, that really stuck out in this Direct. Again, this Direct was kind of just like a nothing burger. Well, I don't want to say nothing burger. There were some pretty good games in there, but it wasn't a big Direct in my personal opinion. And aside from the Switch 2 stuff, this is very, very late into the Nintendo Switch's lifetime. That's another reason that this could just be really not too big. The one thing I do have to wonder is why did Nintendo wait so long for this Nintendo Direct? I feel like this could have released in February or sometime before now. I don't know why they waited so close to the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. I mean, if we got the Direct in February, I don't think anyone's gonna wonder, oh, are they gonna do a Direct right before the Switch 2 Direct, right? I just don't get why they waited so long. Maybe they wanted some of these games to be closer to the release date. That's one possibility. If they would have did it in February, it would have been further. Again, a lot of these games end up in June. And what Nintendo typically likes to do is they usually like to have a certain momentum of excitement around the brand and a certain amount of games to still be releasing. We just had Xenoblades now, so this is probably the perfect chance to add more games into that pile after. And then, of course, you have Metroid Prime 4. You also have the Tamagotchi game in 2026. There's a lot of other games that are announced here that kind of sprinkle throughout the next 2 years. And then we'll have all the Directs in the next 2 years as well, which will probably fill out the rest of the 2 years and further beyond that. So I can see it working out. I just don't really think... Again, I'm just a random person online, but I wouldn't have done that. I would have just thrown this Direct in February, if I'm being honest. But overall, if I had to rate this Nintendo Direct, not specifically a number, just like how I felt about it, it was almost a nothing burger. There were a couple good things about it, but it was kind of just like, okay. I mean, that's cool, but I'm kind of ready for the Switch 2, essentially. Now, I do think that Nintendo is going to have a lot of big games during that Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. I mean, the fact that they showed another trailer for Metroid Prime 4 here and not during that Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, there has to be some pretty big games during that Direct. Either that or they're just shoving everything into like June time. So I guess we'll see on that. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this Direct in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.